Welcome to Mental Health Mondays Recovery, and today I'm going to be talking about intrusive thoughts. We have those during our bad times, and we also have them, joy of joys, during recovery. In your bad time, they're the thoughts that hold you down, that tell you you're worthless, that you're useless, that nobody likes you because you're an unlikable person. They are the thought cycles that keep you low and prevent you from moving forward. Now, when I was not in recovery and I had those thoughts, I found it very difficult to break out of them. They could bring me very, very low indeed, especially in a clinical depression. My cyclothymic depressions, as I said before, are not that deep in the sense of they don't last as long. A clinical depression will last for me 5-6 months sometimes, but a cyclothymic depression might last a week. And even in those week-long cyclothymic depressions, I would be laid very, very low by the thought cycle, telling me that I was worthless and useless and unable to cope and not a good person and not worthy of anything. These thoughts are absolute bullshit. They are negative stuff that you have sort of internalized from the things that have happened to you, and I think they are also a part of the makeup of mental illness. It's very much a black hole that you fall into, and it is a cycle and it perpetuates itself. And I think one of the means with which it perpetuates itself are these negative thoughts, because you are feeling so terribly low, because you are feeling so terribly desperate and lonely and helpless. The first thing that your mind then does is start to attack you. It's a tsunami of self-hatred and self-sabotage, because we are feeling so desperately sad and low that we immediately attack ourselves, because there's got to be a reason why we're feeling like this. And usually the blame comes upon the self, doesn't it? Even if you know it was circumstances, you tend to think, well, they're my fault. It's sort of programmed into us to assume that it's our fault. I can't stand those fucking memes that say things like, you're responsible for the things that have happened to you. I know that those memes are trying to make people take more responsibility for themselves and their actions, but that's not the way to go about it, especially not with someone who's been through something traumatic. How dare anyone turn around to them and say, well, you're responsible for that. You're not. Nor are you responsible to a certain point about how you feel. When you've come past the period where you've learned how to cope with that thing in your life, because some things you never get over, you just learn how to cope with them, like losing someone or having something happen to you that was not your decision. Recovering from those is a matter of learning how to accept the fact that they've happened and move on and live with the scars that they have left you. Attacking someone at the point where they're still trying to get through all the pain and the grief and the hurt and the damage, it's deeply irresponsible. But there comes a certain point where I would say I'm at, where you have to start taking responsibility for the way you're reacting in your life. So, for instance, my bipolar, when it got to the point where I have children and my irritability, my dysphorias were affecting my children, because I was unable to keep calm when I needed to, that is the point where you start taking responsibility for yourself. You're like, right, this is not a natural mood. I am not going to allow it to make me upset my children. That is the point where you take responsibility. And the more you walk into recovery, the more capable you are of taking responsibility for stuff. But still, the intrusive thoughts are very difficult to deal with, because they're not something that you are responsible for, essentially. They are a form of self-sabotage that you have no control over, because they are very much part of the cycle of mental illness that you've been going through. So I have found in recovery, they get a lot louder and they get a lot more insistent. And especially when you have little slide backs, because you have slide backs in recovery, you'll go 1 step forward and 2 steps back, and sometimes you'll go 3 steps forward and 10 steps back. Stuff happens. And be compassionate with yourself and be patient, because recovery is a mountain climb. It is not a stroll down a garden path. Especially long-term mental health problems, it is very much a battle to get back to normal life. These things do not happen automatically. You have to do them gradually. You have to be patient with yourself, and you have to be compassionate, like I've said. And you are going to have slide backs. And in those moments of slide back, all the voices, the little intrusive thoughts, they have a field day. They're like, you know, look how your routine's fallen apart. Look how you've managed to stop going out again. Look how pathetic you are. No one wants to talk to you. No one gets in touch with you. What I do to get past them now, I do two things. The first thing I do is question them. If an intrusive thought appears in my head, even if I've had a slide back and I'm feeling really bad, I will immediately question it. Why am I worthless? Why does nobody like me? Yeah, I'm a weirdo. Pfft, who cares? I've always been a weirdo. I'm always going to be a weirdo. And the people who like me are going to like me despite that. And even the people who don't like me, if they don't like me because of my weirdness, then more power to them. They don't have to like me. Not everybody has to like me. It's just a fact of life. People are going to like you or not like you. And you can't expect everyone to feel good about you as a person. Because look at it from a personal point of view, I do not like everyone I meet. Simple as that. If I don't like everyone I meet, how on earth is everyone I meet going to like me? Simple logic. So attack these intrusive thoughts with a bit of logic, with a bit of, like, you know, call them out for the bullshit that they are, basically. And the other method that I use is called fuck it, do it anyway. It's just like your mind is telling you, oh, you can't possibly do that. You're way too useless. You're not competent enough to go and do that. So you just go and do it anyway. Because what is your mind going to do when you've done it? And if you try it and you don't manage it, and the voices are like, well, I told you couldn't do that, just tell it to shut the fuck up, because not everyone can do everything that they try. But if you don't try, you never know whether you can do it or not. And the point of recovery is to get through. The point of recovery is to try and reach a point where your conditions bother you as little as possible, where you have pushed them down to the point that they are a niggle that you only know that you need to handle. Like, you know, like a recurrent skin condition like psoriasis or something. You might not ever get rid of it, but you might find that there is a routine that you can maintain that keeps it at a level that you can cope with. This is what you're aiming to do with recovery. If you've got conditions like mine, cyclothymia, that might not necessarily be curable. If you've got conditions that are curable, then what you're aiming to do is get to the point where you are past them. And don't worry about relapse. It is an anvil that hangs over your head. It is terrifying, and it is going to haunt you a little bit. It haunts me, the possibility of backslide completely to illness again. But what I have found thus far is that even when I have my slide backs and I'm feeling at my most terrified that things are going to get bad, there's a point beyond which I don't go. When I've been feeling at my lowest, I have not slid back further than a certain point. I've had cyclothymic depressions that have lasted a week or a couple of weeks, but I have had, fingers crossed, touch wood, no full clinical depressions for about a year and a half now, almost 2 years, I think. And that is a huge improvement. And the way I have been attacking my intrusive thoughts, it doesn't always work. Sometimes they do win, and you find that you have a day where you're just sitting around like, I can't, you know, and that's when you need to have the compassion for yourself. That's when you need to have a little bit of patience and say, right, okay, it's cool. Let's try again tomorrow. And that's the only way you're going to get through it. If you're constantly harassing yourself and like, no, you need to go and do this now, you're just going to get yourself into a cycle of frustration, and that's not going to help. So that's a little bit about intrusive thoughts. Over the next few episodes of this, I'm going to be doing like a self-care thing. So all aspects of self-care and what happens in recovery with that and how it changes. So I hope you'll tune in for that in 2 weeks' time. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.